The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more. One of Congress's biggest advocates for the crypto industry is reintroducing legislation this month that offers protections for investors with forked crypto assets. That is, when blockchains split in two and give investors two cryptocurrencies. U.S. Representative Tom Emmer's proposed legislation outlaws penalizing taxpayers until the IRS clarifies its policies. Joining us now is Congressman Tom Emmer in Minnesota. Welcome, Representative Emmer.
Good morning.
Thanks
for having me.
Great to have you. So you're a top Republican on the House Financial Services Committee's task force on financial technology, and you say that the IRS has unfairly punished those investing in an emerging technology, and what has been issued by the IRS so far is not pragmatic. Can you go and explain what you mean by this?
It's uncertainty. The worst thing that government can do to the marketplace is create uncertainty, and certainly when we're talking about crypto, when we're talking about this whole industry, because now it's a $2 trillion industry, the uncertainty can be pretty, frustrating. It can stop the innovation. So you referenced it, we reintroduced the Safe Harbor for Taxpayers with Forked Assets Act on tax day, May 17, 2021. And what this does, it's going to prohibit penalties against taxpayers who are attempting to report gains or losses on their forked digital assets until the IRS finally issues sufficient guidance on how to do so. The difference between this 117th Congress text, because we introduced this in the last Congress, it delineates that receipt of a forked virtual currency may not constitute a taxable event. And Christine, that's the problem. You know, forks are splits in one distributed ledger, often a blockchain, that results in a new second independent digital ledger. For example, Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin. This bill that we've reintroduced with the new language is a way to, I think, reasonably insulate taxpayers from potential liabilities that they didn't cause. They stem primarily from the present lack of sufficient guidance from the IRS on forked virtual currencies. And I think to emphasize this, people have to keep in mind that Dogecoin was forked from Lucky Coin, which is a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. What happens here, Christine, is that you or I hold some asset, you have a fork in this digital asset. We may not even know that it forked. We might not even know that we had Lucky Coin and now we have Dogecoin, and yet the IRS, because it's not been clear, puts you and I in a quandary where we might get up one day and suddenly be sent a bill from the U.S. government, specifically from the IRS, telling us that this transaction that we had nothing to do with, that we didn't control, somehow is an income event, which that's what we're trying to protect so that the innovation can continue.
Representative Emmer, it's actually just interesting to hear you talk in such detail about, Dogecoin is a fork of Lucky Coin. You don't hear this a lot from from Washington. I'm just curious, how did you get so into crypto? How did you learn so much about crypto? And are you very unusual in Washington? Because my impression is that you are in terms of a level of understanding. So what drew you to cryptocurrency in the first place?
Well, this is my fourth term in the U.S. House of Representatives. I represent a district in Minnesota, and when I went to Washington, D.C., Emily, I looked at it as Main Street issues. It's about capital formation, the thing that separates the United States of America from every other country on the face of the planet. And quite frankly, in my opinion, it's what defines our quote-unquote freedom is our financial system. The ability for anyone with a great idea to go sit down with their local community banker, whomever it is that they work with in the financial industry, to try and get that startup capital to start that next small business, that starts in a garage like Harley Davidson, like Amazon, like Walt Disney, where they get some startup cash, they begin it in their garage, if you will, and it grows into the next big business. And as I got to Washington, the way I got involved in crypto is a great staff guy who's totally into it gave me the book Age of Cryptocurrency. And what they found out
by Michael Casey, that's the chief content officer at CoinDesk. Shout out to
shout out to Michael Casey.
Thank you for doing that. I met Michael, and I told him this is what started it for me. I read the book because I read everything they give to me, and I realized that for somebody that looks like me, this is not exactly in my wheelhouse. So it was about getting up to speed, figuring out that this is not Silk Road. This is what traditionally some of my colleagues who don't understand the internet, who don't understand where we're moving with these different technologies. In fact, because they don't have the experience with it, they fear it. On the other hand, I'm different. I embraced it. You know, I got 7 kids, and they're ages 30 down to 19. They're right in the middle of this. And I think it behooves people like me with election certificates, Emily, to get up to speed, to understand the promise that this provides, and really to try and advocate that it be done right and that we allow this to grow and have the next level of innovation that, frankly, is going to give a whole new group of Americans access to the financial system, hopefully so that they can grow their own freedom.
Congressman Emmer, glad you're on. One of the issues, of course, that's driving crypto right now is this fear that government spending is exceeding the ability of the economy to keep prices stable. In other words, it's going to cause a massive amount of inflation. The GOP has countered President Biden's proposal with its own $1 trillion infrastructure project package that would happen at a time when the economy seems to be roaring back. So shouldn't the Republicans have responded with $0 infrastructure proposal, even cuts in other spending? What happened to the Republican Party? Did you guys get rid of Reagan and replace him with Keynes?
I mean, you're talking to somebody who never voted for a spending bill under the last administration because it is about the spending, it's about the debt. But look, to pick on one side or the other, this has been a Washington problem, not necessarily a partisan problem. There is no question, Lawrence, that this new administration, starting out with a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, which was their version of a stimulus, quite frankly, less than 10% of it actually had anything to do with COVID. And now to have this $2.24 trillion bill that they propose, that the president has proposed, the framework anyway, where I think it's 6% of it was actually for traditional infrastructure. Look, we got a problem in Washington, D.C. It's one that it's going to take both sides to sit down and recognize. There's no question that this unprecedented spending on the heels, well, during and now on the heels of this pandemic is a threat. With inflation, already we saw a spike in April, and we better start to get our heads around this thing. And yes, you're right. This area, crypto, stable coins, etc., the whole area is growing because people, frankly, this started in 2008 because people were losing confidence. So if we're going to restore confidence, we got to put some sanity back into the spending side of the equation in Washington.
So we're running out of time, but one quick question. My understanding is that you've been trying to get this bill through for a while now. Is there a holdup? What's the obstacle? Is there bipartisan support for this? The bipartisan support is growing. There was opposition to begin with, again, because of the fear of the unknown. I mean, and by the way, government is so desperate on a regular basis because of what Lawrence talked about, you know, the spending. Government has got to find new revenue streams wherever it can. In fact, the budget proposal that came out, interestingly, on a Friday afternoon before Memorial Weekend, which includes hiring all kinds of new IRS agents to try and chase down Americans. And I mean, we heard your guest right before I got on talking about how when it comes to crypto assets, they want to make sure you're not holding them offshore because they want to make sure that if there's a taxable event there, they can get it. This is something that we're going to have to be aware of. And as I push this bill and others, trying to bring some reasonable colleagues from both sides of the aisle that are willing to think out of the box and understand
This is not going away. You can write all the op-eds you want in the Wall Street Journal and other places talking about how this isn't going to work. You can listen to the leaders of the big banks that we had in the Financial Services Committee last week talk about this is a bad bet, don't do it. Kind of funny, though, they're saying one thing, folks, but they're trying to figure out how they can be involved in this area as well. So there's a lot of promise in the future, but I think government has got to be a light touch, and we've got to allow the innovators to do what they do best, which is not only to continue to grow, but find new ways to give people access to the financial system.